Hi all. This class is about the regulation of blood glucose. How the blood glucose is regulated in the fed state and what are all the changes that occurs in an individual organ during the fed state. So maintenance of blood glucose is one of the fine regulation of all the homeostatic mechanism. The blood glucose level has to be maintained within the critical narrow limit, because brain, which is an important organ which utilizes the blood glucose, even though it can utilize the ketone bodies during the fasting state, it is obligatory for blood glucose. And renal medulla and RBC, they are totally dependent on blood glucose for its energy. Hence, blood glucose has to be maintained within the narrow range. So maintenance of blood glucose involves hepatic tissue, extrahepatic tissue, and several hormones play a role. In case of liver, glucose enter via the GLUT2 transporter into the hepatocyte. While in case of extrahepatic tissue, other than the pancreas and the brain, the glucose influx via the glucose transporter, which are insulin sensitive. Hence, uptake of glucose is considered to be a rate-limiting step in the maintenance of blood glucose, considering the extrahepatic tissue. You know that normal fasting plasma glucose level is less than 100 milligram per deciliter, and after the intake of normal meal, it reaches a peak at 1 hour, which is less than 140 milligram per deciliter, and it returns to normal fasting level within 2 hours after a meal. So before going into the class, you need to know the terms like what is a fed state, what is a fasting state, what is early starvation, and what is late starvation. The fed state is otherwise known as absorptive state, which occurs immediately after the intake of meal to 4 hours after a meal. The fasting state is otherwise known as post-absorptive state, which occurs between 4 hours to 12 hours. Between 12 hours to 16 days, it is called as a yearly starvation. When it is more than 16 days, it is called as the late starvation. So what is homeostasis of blood glucose? When the blood glucose level is very high, it stimulates the islets of Langerhans of pancreas. Here, the beta cells are stimulated to release the insulin. This insulin makes a peripheral tissue to utilize the glucose from the blood. Thus, it maintains a normal blood glucose level. When the glucose level is low, what happens? It stimulates the alpha cells of islets of Langerhans of the pancreas to release the glucagon hormone. This glucagon favors glycogenolysis in the liver, and hence glucose is released to the blood. Thus, it maintains the normal blood glucose. So we will see the changes in the fed state. After the intake of meal, there is a transient rise in the glucose, triacyl glycerol, and amino acid. As you know, food is composed of complex mixture of carbohydrate, fats, and proteins. Before absorption, they have to convert it to a simpler unit to monosaccharide, fat to fatty acids and glycerol, proteins to peptides and amino acid. So in the fed state, there will be transient rise in the glucose, triacyl glycerol, and amino acid. So this increase in glucose and amino acid, especially leucine and arginine, will stimulate the islet of Langerhans. This is a histological picture showing the islet of Langerhans. So the dark blue staining cells are the beta cells, which releases the insulin. The red stained cells are the alpha cells, which releases the glucagon. You can easily remember B for B. Blue stained cells are the beta cells, right? So with the increase in the glucose and amino acid, this stimulates the beta cells of the islet of Langerhans of pancreas to release the insulin, and hence there is elevated insulin and decreased glucagon level. So high insulin glucagon ratio, along with the presence of increased substrate from the food, will make this period an anabolic period. What do you mean by that? There is an increased glucose oxidation, increased glycogen synthesis, increased fatty acid synthesis, and increased protein synthesis. So in the fed state, virtually all the tissue utilizes the glucose as a fuel. So what are the factors that maintains the blood glucose? The factors which cause entry of glucose into the blood are absorption from the intestine. After a meal, there is increase in the blood glucose level in the extracellular fluid. So when there is glycogenolysis, glycogen breakdown, gluconeogenesis, which is the formation of glucose from non-carbohydrate source, along with hyperglycemic hormone, these are all the causes for the increase in the blood glucose level. The factors which causes depletion of glucose are whenever the tissue utilizes the glucose for its energy, and when all the glucose are converted to glycogen synthesis, when glucose is converted to fat, and some hypoglycemic hormone, they cause the depletion of the glucose in the blood. So what are the enzyme changes in the absorptive state? So as you know, the flow of intermediates through the metabolic pathway is controlled by 4 mechanisms. One is the availability of the substrate. Second is by the allosteric regulation. Third is by the covalent modification of enzyme. The fourth is the induction and repression of the enzyme synthesis, which primarily acts at the level of transcription. We will see one by one. First, about the availability of substrate. In the fed state, the substrate availability is more, and hence the reaction proceeds forward. Second is the allosteric regulation, which usually involves the rate limiting step. Consider this reaction. In the fed state, what happens? There will be elevated glucose level. This glucose enter into glycolytic pathway to produce more glucose 6-phosphate. Glucose 6-phosphate is converted to fructose 6-phosphate. This fructose 6-phosphate is catalyzed by the enzyme phosphofructokinase 2 to form more fructose 2,6-bisphosphate. This fructose 2,6-bisphosphate is an allosteric activator of phosphofructokinase 1, and hence the glycolysis is favored. And fructose 2,6-bisphosphate is also an allosteric negative regulator of fructose 1,6-bisphosphatase, and hence gluconeogenesis is not active. So in the fed state, glycolysis is favored and gluconeogenesis is not favored, since the increased fructose 2,6-bisphosphate will act as an allosteric activator of phosphofructokinase. So phosphofructokinase 2 and phosphofructokinase 1 are totally different enzyme. So this fructose 2,6-bisphosphate hydrolyzed by the enzyme fructose 2,6-bisphosphatase to form fructose 6-phosphate. These two enzymes are reciprocally regulated. Phosphofructokinase 2 and fructose 2,6-bisphosphatase are reciprocally regulated. They occur as a tandem enzyme on a single polypeptide chain. The third mechanism is the covalent modification. The most common of the covalent modification is the phosphorylation and dephosphorylation of the enzymes. They occur at the serine, threonine, and tyrosine residues. So in this reaction, the pyruvate dehydrogenase, when it is phosphorylated, they are inactive. When it is dephosphorylated, they are active, and hence the reaction proceeds forward. So most of the enzymes in the fed state, they are active in the dephosphorylated stage. There are exceptions. They are glycogen phosphorylase kinase, and hormone sensitive lipase of the adipose tissue, which are inactive in the dephosphorylated state. So only 3 enzymes that are inactive in the dephosphorylated state in the fed state, they are glycogen phosphorylase kinase, and hormone sensitive lipase of the adipose tissue, while other enzymes, they are active in the dephosphorylated state. The fourth is the induction and the repression of the enzyme synthesis. Induction, which means increase in the synthesis. Repression, which means decrease in the synthesis of the enzyme. They affect the amount of the enzyme. So number of active site is going to get decreased. It doesn't affect the efficacy of the existing enzyme molecule. For example, in the fed state, what happens? There is an active increased synthesis of acetyl-CoA carboxylase and HMG-CoA reductase, which makes the fed state as an anabolic period. So in the fed state, glucokinase regulates the blood glucose after a meal. because glucokinase has high Km value and it is not inhibited by the product glucose 6-phosphate, while hexokinase has low Km with high affinity and it is inhibited by the glucose 6-phosphate. So this ensures a glucose uptake within the liver after a meal when glucose concentration is very high in the hepatic portal vein. Next, we'll see about the changes that occurs in the different organs. So first, we'll see about the liver. So the position of the liver itself is very unique in that it receives the venous drainage from the small intestine and the pancreas before it enters into the general circulation. So it is bathed by the micronutrients and the insulin from the pancreas in the fed state. So liver normally is a glucose producing cell rather than the utilizing cell. So in the fed state, it consumes about 60 grams of every 100 grams of glucose it enters into the liver. So the increased use is not due to the stimulated transport, since the entry of glucose is very rapid, as also GLUT2 transporter is insulin insensitive transporter. So what are the causes for the increased use? First is the increased phosphorylation of the glucose. So high insulin glucagon ratio will favor the entry of glucose into the hepatocyte. This glucose is phosphorylated to glucose 6-phosphate. So catalyzed by the enzyme glucokinase. As you know, glucokinase has high Km value with a low affinity and it is not inhibited by the product inhibition. Also, there is increased glycogen synthesis. Increased glucose 6-phosphate acts as an allosteric effector of glycogen synthase. This glycogen synthase will be active in the dephosphorylated state. So it acts as an allosteric activator of glycogen synthase. Also, it causes the dephosphorylation of the glycogen synthase, which means it covalently modifies the glycogen synthase. So the action of glucose 6-phosphate is either by the allosteric activation or covalent modification. Also, there is increased activity of the HMP pathway. So increased glucose favors glycolysis, increased glucose 6-phosphate, along with the utilization of the NADPH for lipogenesis favors the HMP pathway. This HMP pathway will account for 5 to 10% of the glucose metabolized in the liver. Fourth is the increased glycolysis. High insulin glucagon ratio will favor the entry of glucose into the hepatocyte. This glucose enters into the glycolytic pathway to produce acetyl-CoA. So this high insulin will make the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex to become active. So PDH complex will be active in the dephosphorylated state. Also, increased pyruvate will inhibit the enzyme pyruvate dehydrogenase kinase, and hence pyruvate dehydrogenase will be active in the dephosphorylated state, and hence glycolysis ensures. The acetyl-CoA produced by glycolysis has two fates. One, it enters into the TCA cycle to provide energy, or it acts as a substrate for the synthesis of fatty acid, that is triacylglycerol. Fifth is the decreased gluconeogenesis in the liver. In the fed state, glycolysis is favored, while in case of in the fed state, gluconeogenesis is not favored. The first step is in the gluconeogenesis is pyruvate carboxylase. Acetyl-CoA is an allosteric inhibitor of pyruvate carboxylase. Acetyl-CoA is an allosteric activator of pyruvate carboxylase. Here, the acetyl-CoA is very much reduced because they are utilized for the synthesis of fatty acid. So the high insulin and glucagon ratio also favors the inactivation of the other gluconeogenic enzyme. I will repeat it once again. The acetyl-CoA produced by the glycolysis acts as an allosteric activator of pyruvate carboxylase. In the fed state, there will be low acetyl-CoA, and hence the pyruvate carboxylase is not active, and hence gluconeogenesis is not favored. Also, high insulin glucagon ratio also favors inactivation of other gluconeogenic enzymes. Next, we will see the changes that occurs in the adipose tissue. So the fuel distribution in the adipose tissue is second only to the liver. So the entry of glucose into the adipocyte across the plasma membrane is by the GLUT4 transporter, which is insulin sensitive. So in the fed state, there will be increased glucose transport across the adipocyte due to high insulin. Also, there is increased glycolysis, which serves as a function for the, it acts as a synthetic function by supplying glycerol phosphate for TAG synthesis. Also, there is increased activity of the HMP pathway. In the HMP pathway, NADPH is generated. This NADPH is utilized for the synthesis of the fatty acid. So these are the changes that occurs in the adipose tissue. Increased glucose, entry of glucose across adipocyte, increased glycolysis, it produces a substrate for fatty acid synthesis. Also increased HMP pathway will generate NADPH. This NADPH generated is utilized for the synthesis of the fatty acid. Next, we'll see about the changes that occurs in the resting skeletal muscle. So the glucose, increased glucose in the fed state enter into the skeletal muscle via the GLUT4 transporter. GLUT4 is insulin sensitive, you know. So after entry, it undergoes glycolysis and it can be utilized for its energy. The acetyl-CoA produced enters into the TCA cycle, can be utilized for its energy, since glucose is the primary source of energy for muscle in the well-fed state. Also, the increased glucose 6-phosphate enters into the glycogen synthesis. So the energy metabolism is very unique in that the resting state skeletal muscle, the oxygen consumption is 30%, while in case of vigorous exercise, it consumes about 90% of total oxygen consumption. There is a difference between the cardiac and the skeletal muscle. So cardiac muscle, as you know, it is continuously active, while in case of skeletal muscle, it is intermittent contraction whenever there is a demand. And cardiac muscle, they have completely aerobic metabolism, and it contains only the negligible energy sources, glycogen or lipid. Hence, in case of myocardial infarction, rapid death of the myocardial cells ensures. And it utilizes the fatty acid first, glucose and ketone bodies as a fuel. Next, you will see about the changes in the brain in the well-fed state. It contributes about 2% of the adult weight, while it utilizes the 20% of basal oxygen consumption at rest. If a substance has to provide energy to the brain, the substance has to cross the blood-brain barrier. So of the fuels that is present in the blood during the fed state, only glucose can penetrate the blood-brain barrier via the GLUT1 transporter. This GLUT1 is insulin insensitive. So the glucose that enters into the brain undergo glycolysis to provide energy. So there is no role for glycogen in brain tissue. So in the fasting state, it utilizes the ketone bodies, and hence hypoglycemia below 40 mg/% even for a shorter time, severe and irreversible damage occurs as there is no role for glycogen. Next, we will see about the hormones that are involved in the fed state. The first hormone and the most important hormone is the insulin. Insula, which means the islets. Langerhans is a scientist who described alpha and beta cells of the pancreas, and Banting and Best, they isolated the hormone in a pure form, and Sanger, he sequenced the amino acid of the insulin. For this work, he was awarded Nobel Prize. As you know, the structure, it consists of two peptide chains, A chain and B chain. A has 21 amino acid and B has 30 amino acid. So how do the biosynthesis of insulin occurs? Initially, it is synthesized as a large precursor molecule called as pre-proinsulin, composed of 109 amino acid having a leader or a signal sequence. So in the endoplasmic reticulum of the beta cells, the 23 amino acid of the leader sequence or the signal sequence is removed to produce 86 amino acid proinsulin. So this proinsulin undergoes proteolytic cleavage in the Golgi apparatus to produce C-peptide and the insulin. Insulin has 51 amino acid active form and the C-peptide has 33 amino acid. This proinsulin constitutes about 5 to 10% of the total insulin, and it contributes 1/3 of the biological activity. The synthesis of C-peptide and insulin are in equimolar quantity, and the C-peptide has more half-life in the plasma, and hence it acts as a good indicator of insulin production and secretion, since the amount of insulin and C-peptide that is produced is in the equimolar concentration. The function of C-peptide is it is essential for proper insulin folding. So how it is present? It is packed in a granules. It acquires a hexameric structure composed of 2 zinc ions and 1 calcium ions. Approximately 50 units of insulin are secreted per day, and the normal level is 5 to 25 milli-units per liter. If you want to express it in picomoles per liter, it is 60 to 160 picomoles. So they are degraded by insulinase enzyme, which is present in the liver and the kidneys. The condition called as proinsulinemia, here there is a mutation in the amino acid sequence at the cleavage points. So how the insulin granules are released? The first is a stimulant is the glucose. Increased glucose, entry of glucose into the beta cells of pancreas via the GLUT2 transporter, which is insulin insensitive, right? So increased glucose enter into the beta cells of pancreas. This glucose undergoes glycolysis to produce energy. ATP is synthesized. This ATP will closes the potassium channel. So this ATP gated potassium channel is closed, and hence depolarization of the membrane, plasma membrane, and there is opening of the voltage gated calcium channel, which causes influx of the calcium into the beta cells. So increased calcium will causes the influx of the insulin granules. So secretion of insulin occurs in 2 phases. The first phase occurs within 2 minutes after the intake of meal, and the second phase lasts for 5 to 10 minutes. This is due to the degranulation or the release of the newly synthesized hormone. How it is regulated? So increased secretion occurs in case of whenever there is increased food intake, like in the fed state. There is increased presence of glucose, amino acid, and fatty acid. The presence of intestinal hormones will favor the release of insulin, and glucagon, cortisol, parasympathetic nervous tissues, and certain drugs will favor the insulin secretion. The factors which decrease the insulin secretion are fasting state, epinephrine, norepinephrine, somatostatin, which is synthesized by the D cells of the pancreas, which inhibit not only insulin, but also glucagon and growth hormone. Also, whenever there is a low potassium level, the insulin secretion is going to get depleted, and sympathetic nervous impulse and certain drugs will decrease the secretion. The secretion of insulin is always coordinated with that of the glucagon, and epinephrine overrides the normal glucose stimulated insulin release. Next, we'll see about the incretins. What are incretins? These are the molecule. They increase the insulin secretion. The most important are 2. One is the glucagon-like peptide, which is GLP-1, which is synthesized by the L cells of the ileum. The second one is a glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide, GIP, which is secreted by the K cells in the duodenum. So the 2 most important incretins which are secreted from the intestine are GLP-1 and GIP, glucagon-like peptide 1 and glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide. There will be impaired incretin system in case of type 2 diabetes mellitus. Whenever there is an increased glucose load, this increased glucose in the stomach will pass on to the small intestine. In the small intestine, incretins are released. This incretins will cause the insulin release. And GLP-1 will inhibit the glucagon release. So it favors the insulin release and it inhibits the glucagon release. DPP4, which is dipeptidyl peptidase 4, which are the molecule which inhibit the GLP-1. And hence DPP4 inhibitors have been tried in case of diabetes mellitus. The one advantage of usage of DPP4 inhibitors, which are sitagliptin and saxagliptin, they are taken orally. Next, we'll see about the mechanism of action of insulin. Before that, we'll see about the structure of the insulin receptor. It consists of 4 subunits, 2 alpha subunit and 2 beta subunit. So alpha subunit are exposed to the exterior, and beta subunit, it traverses across a plasma membrane. They have intrinsic tyrosine kinase activity. After the binding of insulin to the alpha subunit, these 2 units come closer together. That is, dimerization of the receptor occurs, and there is activation of the intrinsic tyrosine kinase activity of the beta subunit will cause phosphorylation of the tyrosine residues of the beta subunit. This phosphorylation will favor the phosphorylation of the insulin response substrate, and which mediates the cellular responses. So this is the same mechanism. After the binding of insulin to its insulin receptor, the beta subunit has tyrosine kinase activity. There will be dimerization of the receptor, activation of tyrosine kinase. There will be activation of protein activating cascade occurs, and cellular responses will occur. Also, it translocates the GLUT2 transporter to the plasma membrane, which causes influx of the glucose from the extracellular fluid into the tissues, into the target cells. The taken glucose can be either metabolized or it can be stored. This is a fate of glucose intake inside the cell, whether it can either be metabolized or it can be stored. This GLUT2 transporter is present in a vesicle, clathrin coated vesicle. So whenever there is the insulin stimulation, this GLUT2 transporter will go and fuse with the plasma membrane, causing the influx of the glucose. The main function of the activation of the insulin receptor is the intake of glucose into the cellular tissue. So after the reaction is over, this glucose transporter is recycled. It also causes signal transduction of the molecule. After the binding of the insulin to its alpha subunit, it causes intrinsic tyrosine kinase activity, phosphorylation of the tyrosine residues. This causes phosphorylation of the IRS1 substances, which in turn leads to the phosphorylation of the serine threonine kinases and produces the cellular responses. Insulin also acts at the transcription level, which induces the synthesis of more than 100 proteins. It acts as an inducer of certain enzymes listed here, that is enzymes involved in glycolysis. It causes repression of the enzyme involved in gluconeogenesis. The next function is it activates certain enzymes. It can covalently modify certain enzymes. Some of the enzymes are listed here: glycogen synthase, pyruvate dehydrogenase, pyruvate kinases, acetyl-CoA carboxylase, and HMG-CoA reductases. Overall effect is it produces an anabolic effect. It also causes increase in the DNA synthesis through IRS1 pathway. So how do these mediate its effect? Insulin mediates via its effect via the intracellular mediators like calcium and cyclic AMP. This insulin will inhibit the enzyme phosphodiesterase, and hence cyclic AMP cannot be converted to AMP, and the cyclic AMP level will be decreased, and it inactivates the enzyme which involves the cyclic AMP. Example is glycogen phosphorylase. The metabolic effects of insulin, overall metabolic effects are, its effects are seen in liver, muscle, and adipocyte. In the liver, it decreases gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis. It increases glycogen synthesis. It has anti-ketotic effect, and glucose uptake by the hepatocyte is independent of insulin. In the muscle and adipose tissue, there is increased glucose uptake by recruiting the GLUT4 transporter. And in the muscle, it favors glycogen synthesis. In the adipose tissue, it increases triacylglycerol synthesis and decreases the TAG synthesis. The other effects of insulin are protein synthesis is promoted, anabolic hormone, and it stimulates the replication of certain cells, it acts as a growth factor for the mammalian cells. So the overall effect of insulin in the carbohydrate metabolism is it stimulates the enzymes involved in glycolysis. It inhibits the enzyme involved in gluconeogenesis. It favors glycogen synthesis. It inactivates glycogen degradation. It also increases HMP pathway. So the overall effect here is hypoglycemia. And it favors lipogenesis because of the production of NADPH via the HMP pathway. Next, we'll see about the hyperglycemic hormone glucagon. There are also various hormones which causes hyperglycemia. They are epinephrine or adrenaline, glucocorticoids, ACTH, growth hormone, and thyroxine. All these have anti-insulinic hormones. We'll see about the glucagon. Glucagon is synthesized by the alpha cells of the islets of Langerhans. It is composed of 29 amino acids. Like insulin, it is also synthesized as a larger molecule called as proglucagon. Later, they undergo proteolytic cleavages to give a full molecule called a full active molecule glucagon composed of 29 amino acids. Its sequence is same in all the mammalian tissue. And the stimuli here is whenever there is a low blood glucose level, glucagon is increased. And it is inhibited by increased blood glucose level and insulin. And during the period of stress or trauma, the elevated epinephrine level will override and cause an increase in the glucagon level regardless of the blood glucose concentration. So how do this glucagon act? It acts via the G protein coupled receptor. And G protein is composed of alpha, beta, and gamma subunit. So after the binding of glucagon to its receptor, this alpha subunit will move away from the G protein and become attached to the adenyl cyclase. Hence, inactive adenyl cyclase will become the active adenyl cyclase, which catalyzes the conversion of ATP to cyclic AMP. This cyclic AMP will attach to the regulatory site, which removes it from the catalytic site. So this inactive pyruvate kinase will become active pyruvate kinase whenever the regulatory molecule is removed. So it catalyzes many substances are phosphorylated whenever the pyruvate kinase is activated. Thus, it mediates its effect. So the metabolic effect of glucagon are it decreases the glycolysis, it favors gluconeogenesis, it decreases the glycogen synthesis, it favors glycogenolysis, it favors ketogenesis, it also favors beta oxidation of fatty acid, it inhibits the lipogenesis, and it increases the uptake of amino acid by the liver as a substrate to favor gluconeogenesis. So the overall effect of glucagon is gluconeogenesis is stimulated, glycogen synthesis is inhibited, and glycogenolysis is favored, and it causes lipolysis and ketogenesis is stimulated. And hence the blood glucose level is increased. The other hyperglycemic hormone is glucocorticoids and growth hormone, which is listed here. Thank you. In the next class, we will see about regulation of blood glucose and what are all the changes that occurs in the fasting state in an individual organ. These are my references.